I don't want anybody else in the world to have to go through the pain and suffering I had to go through. Hatred and retaliations will continue and cycle forever. I want people to live in harmony by learning to collaborate better, to see the bigger picture, and to understand not just your own side of the story. I want the world to be peaceful for all humans. It was nearly 8:15 a.m. as I lifted my right arm to wipe the sweat off my right brow, turning my face to the right when, suddenly, I was facing a gigantic fireball. It was at least 5 times bigger and 10 times brighter than the sun. A powerful flame that was pale yellow, almost the color of white. Then,
I'm Akiko Mikamo. I'm the author of 8:15, A True Story of Survival and Forgiveness from Hiroshima. The book talks about my father's survival experiences during the Hiroshima bombing and afterwards. It's about the journey of my father and his father and how his father saved him and taught him resiliency and never giving up. He never talked about it as a tragedy when I was a child. He would talk about it just like a family story. He would say this kind of a joke, and he was a very large-scale man. Or he would say, my brother Takaji, that he was 6 feet tall, like a head taller than everybody else, and he was really outgoing and smart. Bits and pieces. In my early adulthood, he started to talk about some painful experiences. He said, like most other survivors, it was too painful to recollect. The tone of his stories were mostly about longing for the lost family. Yeah, my father was very strict and at the same time extremely attentive. My father's shop was very small with just a few people. He had his desk where he designed his transformers by hands, and his workstation had a machine to make a core of the transformer, and he had a lot of tools in the shop. And it was kind of like an amusement park for me. I would play hours and hours in his shop. And whenever I had a question or I needed help, he would always stop his hands from making his own work stuff, and he would just teach me. He loved teaching, and I loved learning. My father has a credo: 10 years to build trust, 1 matter to lose it. He has always lived up to his highest standards for integrity and honesty and honor. He taught me the love and value of learning. He has also taught me the value and importance of serving for the community and others.
Contrary to the blazing light that blinded Shinji Mikamo and the thunderous noise as if that of the universe exploded, Shinji was thrown into a deafening silence of pitch-black cosmos at the same time. He lost all sense of place and time, not sure if it was just a nightmare and if he was still alive.
Then my father heard his father frantically shouting, "Shinji! Shinji!" His face and the right side of the body, right arms and hands and back, and also the right leg were severely burnt. That he was wearing a very thin clothing, running shirt and half pants. And it was the summertime, and he was exposed to 100% to the immense heat. So his skin popped and just hung from the body all over. He couldn't see from his left eye. He thought he lost the eyeball, but it was the blood that was massively flowing from the forehead that made him not be able to see from his eye. They heard screams from all over, wailing in pain and agony and despair. Everything collapsed. Trees were burned and fires approaching, and the air was so thick and dark and they couldn't see much.
In the face of infernal discord, Shinji's father, Fukuichi, remained calm and level-headed, staying true to his nature.
According to my father, my grandfather was always like that he was always composed and wise and strong.
Disbelieving that anything could get worse, Shinji and his father saw hell on earth as they noticed a fast-approaching fire, engulfing everything in its way. It was then that Fukuichi struggled to remain calm, but it seemed that he already knew where to go.
Sakae Bridge. My grandfather rescued my father and grabbed his hand and said they needed to go to Sakae Bridge.
Sakae Bridge, a structure of concrete and steel that could withstand the explosion and could offer them protection.
The bridge was about 90 yards away, but it seemed it took forever because of the debris and my father's injuries so severe.
Upon reaching the bridge, a crowd of hundreds were already gathered and hundreds more were coming. An influx of men and women, all disfigured and with horrible burns, all grasping at survival. They made it to an empty spot on the left bank of the river, but as soon as they had settled, the father and son were startled when someone screamed,
"Fire! Fire! Get into the river!" Somebody shouted. My grandfather forced my father up, and the river was only 10 feet away, and they inched their way into the river. He didn't even feel the pain because his body was almost numb from the raw flesh.
The Kyobashi River was at full tide, more than 3 feet high. Thousands of people had fled to the river to seek its protection from the flames and for many, a relief from their burns. Surrounding them were floating bodies that were not able to withstand their grave injuries and had succumbed to their deaths.
And my father was really distraught. He wanted to rescue them, but he could barely stand still himself because he felt so weak. And my grandfather was holding him very strongly and reminding him to stay strong.
After some time that they were in the water, Fukuichi and Shinji crawled their way back into the river surrounded by a scene of chaos, agony, and madness. At sundown, father and son, together with a stream of wounded, dragged their heavily beaten bodies towards Sentei Garden. They arrived by nightfall, but what was once bursting with summer colors, the alluring garden was now gritty and black from the blast, battered, broken, and lifeless to the ground.
Early next morning, somebody said the military were treating the injured at the East Army Drill Ground, so they both decided to go. During his childhood, he played with his friends for hours, chasing dragonflies and playing tag just in the field. But when they arrived, it was a total opposite. of what they had hoped for. There were no medical supplies or doctors, just hundreds of people in lines, completely devastated.
It was in this place where Shinji lost his father, more so his will to survive. He lost his protector. However, in a complete turn of events, Shinji found the strength to push himself back up and dragged his tired body to search for his father once more. And for this, his determination was not left in vain, for they were reunited. August 8. 2 days after the bombing, Shinji and Fukuichi were able to climb 50 steps to reach the top of Toshigo Shrine.
There were only a few people at the top of the shrine steps, and it was quiet and kind of peaceful, unlike the chaos at the bottom on the East Almindro ground. And by 3 p.m., my grandfather made a shocking announcement. He said they were going down and going back to where the house was. My father felt for the first time after the bombing just a second of feeling of peace, and he didn't want to move. He just wanted to stay there. But my grandfather said there is nothing, no food, no water, nothing. So they needed to go back. And it was a very difficult decision, but my father had to follow because my grandfather was a very strong man and he would not budge.
They made it down 10 steps when they encountered 2 Japanese soldiers who would not let them pass and turned a blind eye on their dreadful situation, and also disrespected Shinji's father when he spat on Fukuichi's face.
When they had a chance to talk about what happened at the shrine, my ever-wise grandfather pacified him, reminding him if they had encountered the demons, they had also encountered the angels, like those who took them in for shelter when they got back to where the house was.
Having experienced and walked through Inferno with death constantly on their side, Fukuichi was Shinji's stronghold through all the suffering they encountered. It was through Fukuichi's calm yet strengthened character that Shinji miraculously survived this ordeal, instilling in his young mind and heart the fighting spirit to persevere, even when he wanted to surrender and give in to death countless of times.
I've always wanted to write this book since I was about 10 years old, to tell the story of survival and forgiveness under that mushroom cloud. I want to impart the message of resiliency, adaptability, human love, family love, empathy, and forgiveness. My father raised me, constantly reminding me to always see the big picture of what was happening in the world at the time. That war was to be blamed and not the Americans. He wanted me to grow and learn about other cultures and become a bridge to help people from different backgrounds with different beliefs to understand one another, so no one will have to go through what they have gone through, to contribute to world peace. And because of these words, I learned English and decided to move to the United States and study multicultural psychology. Now, my mission is to educate people of various backgrounds, understand themselves and one another, and have the ability to see things from multiple perspectives, even in conflicts, so that they can effectively communicate and collaborate with one another. With this objective, San Diego Wish, Worldwide Initiative to Safeguard Humanity, was born, a non-profit organization aiming to spread this wish for peace and humanity to the world and educate the future generations. My father chose to set aside his own subjective feelings and see things from the other person's perspective, considering their upbringing and culture, and understand the context and environment they were in that led to the dropping of the atomic bomb. He chose to use this experience as an opportunity to better understand humans, rather than to remain a victim to lifelong chains of anger, judgment, and detachment. With the right intentions, yesterday's enemies can become tomorrow's best friends. That is my vision for the world.
My father taught me to question and to forgive. He was the man who gave me life and then saved my life. Shinji Mikamo.